you get your hair cut?
No, but because it's gotten so Bernie Sanders, I thought I'd better do something. Well,
Yeah.
Melinda's offered to cut my hair, but, she's already doing so much for me,
I know.
We're sort of fortunate because we have a place that we can go to and we feel secure.
My whole life, I've always had a plan B that I seem to be able to control and think about. Where do I want to live? Where do I want to visit? And all of a sudden, there's no place to run to. There's no other place that you can go that's going to give you any more security than you have here. So I feel pretty secure in New York City. I like being here in my place with my stuff. It really is comforting to be able to move around my apartment, not worry about someone else.
But I feel really good that somehow it seemed to me that I had a purpose to get busy with making these drawings about COVID-19. And I guess I recognized that it was something about it that really brought me back to the beginning of my life. Hello, guys. What a beautiful face, huh? It's very tempting to give them names. But that sort of seems like you're pretending there's an intimacy there that is there, but not so that one can presume it. So look at these wings. They're quite amazing, right? Oh, yeah. Okay, now, no, there it went. It was fast. So I put the ring on when they're about 10 days old, and it has an individual number on it, and also the year it was born, and also the initials of the pigeon club I belong to. So the club has membership all across the country, and so I'm kind of isolated here, because at one time there were a lot of pigeon keepers here, but because of gentrification, I'm like just about the last guy still doing it. See, they're used to the rabbits, so they don't seem to mind it. Well, maybe they do mind it. Here comes another one down. Here they come. When they're on the coop, they can't really see the skyline. They only can see the neighboring, like across the street. But now they're starting to fly together because that's what they want to do, slowly. So it's partly, what I show them, and also partly, there's a natural inclination, like people, to crowd together and to fly together. Yeah, for me it's interesting that I've been doing this since I was 12 years old. So what is that, 70 years going on? To think that there is still a part of one's life that is intact from that time ago is sort of an interesting thing, because we kind of live our life, it's like a journey that's always moving away from something towards something else, and that there is one part of one's life that remains permanent, that it's possible to have that same intimacy with nature. I think for me, it's a very precious kind of relationship I feel with them, because in a way you kind of have to allow them to trust you, that you are actually trying to do your best with them and be fair about it. sound is so amazing with this radio. So for me, like my childhood, we had a radio like that when I was a kid in Holland. And during the occupation, there was a radio that was like illegal because you were not supposed to listen to BBC, any kind of news about the war. So it had to be like always under a blanket. You can really feel the wood of the instruments, you know, the violins, the tone. I'm trying to isolate that figure so it sort of lights up. So the more I make dark on the sides, it kind of then makes this center part, illuminates it. Now, what the hell do I make of it now? My father was meant to be an artist, but he grew up in a very kind of simple household where it was not encouraged. So he became instead a teacher and then a principal. So when I came along, both my brother, everybody in the family loved to draw, my mother too. And so when I came along, it was more encouraged. But when I was a child, I also had trouble with my vision. I couldn't keep touch with what was happening in the classroom. And when you fall behind in the school, it goes quickly. And I think I also what they call now attention deficit disorder. If I read a book, even into my teens and 20s, I could not connect one sentence to the next sentence. I would forget what the last sentence was, the next sentence. So it was like incredibly tedious to read. And I was in my father's class even at school, and when I was sitting in his school, when it was time to draw, all the other students would come around me and watch me draw. So it was like the one time in school where suddenly attention was focused on me in a positive way. And so that sort of was the beginning, I think, of also realizing that there was a weapon there, a power there that I could use, that was the one weapon. And it was the only thing that I really had that actually was very powerful in itself. My brother, he went to a more sophisticated art school than I'd gone to. He brought home this book about Steinberg that totally captured our imagination. The way in which he talked about anything and everything, and he had this incredible way of drawing with a single line, not rendered. Well, it's both a sort of an incredible power of observation, you know, of people and their lives and the world in which they inhabit. And then he was very interested in people. He was really basically a novelist who drew. The beauty was found in the street, and the wonder of life was found in the street, but it was also found in the moment that people were living it. And that's what, you know, was a big influence for me. And then when I went to New York, he was like on top of my list of people I wanted to meet. So I found Steinberg in the phone book, and I just called him. And he said, yeah, well, call me back in a year. And so I called him back then, and he said, come on right now. And I did. And I brought my drawings with me. In retrospect, I'm thinking, oh my God, he gave me an hour and a half without knowing nothing about me, looked at my drawings, and he said, they're very good. They have obsessions. And I just started talking with him, and he almost immediately said, you know, I need somebody to work in my studio. Do you know anybody? And I said, yeah, that'd be me. I'll do anything. And that's how it started. So I started very simple, just sweeping up, and I would go there every Wednesday. That's what I did with him for 30 years, go there every Wednesday. But then there were all sorts of odd jobs, you know, that he wanted me to do. Like he was interested in different places in the city, and he would send me down to the Bowery or send me down to 14th Street to photograph banks. Or he loved these buildings like post offices and that. He loved to make drawings of them. So I would come back with a whole folder full of pictures of yellow cabs, for instance, and then he would do a series of drawings about it. So they actually became drawings in the New Yorker. He knew everybody. That's how I met so many people, you know, that otherwise I would not have met. People like Cartier-Bresson, Miro, I mean, you name it. Because it was sort of a son-father relationship, and I think they all thought it was sort of endearing that he had that and that I had it. He talked about that as an artist, one should apply this sense of beauty and surprise and investigation into anything one does. And I think that's sort of what I've adopted about it. In fact, the art that an artist makes, they're just postcards of the artist's life. But the actual life is far more interesting. So that was, I think, a special message there from him. In our family, we would have these, you know, dinner, eating time, and it'd be around this big table we had in Holland, in Amstelveen, where we grew up. My father would always sit here, and I would sit right next to him, and it was almost like a tribunal, and he would, while we were eating, give us all these life lessons and judgments about how we were conducting our lives. And the idea was always that I would sit next to me because I was so restless and quirky and jumpy and whatever, that he could just like hit me. So that was like his sort of routine, to hit me over the head so hard at times that you kind of, you know, bells went off in your ears ringing. Towards me, it was always with extreme impatience and harshness, like I couldn't do anything right. And Judith keeps reminding me, you know, there was a fucking war going on there. What do you think is gonna happen in that family? Yeah, so this is, you know, where I lived as a child, and I was born here, and just in this house in front of us here, on the upper floor, just a two-story structure. And then the church is right next to it, the Calvinist church. And then right here where I'm standing was the school, where my father was the principal of this school with the Bible. And that's where I was raised, in this whole very church community around the Bible world as a child. Very small world, which I'm kind of shocked at to see now.
I was born in the Hitler year, 1933, and Anton is from 1938. My first recollections are from that he is sitting in a chair that we had for children, in which they had to sit still and eat and do poo-poo and do everything as long as they were quiet. And I remember that I really thought it was a beautiful little guy.
He was always strange, you know. He followed his own path.
That's true.
I think he was in another room.
But I always wandered off. I don't know what that was about, but I did. And I think there was different ways of coping in these terrible times, right? So I always was disappearing, looking for birds, fishing, and I found it in nature, you know, myself, and how to be by myself. I had no problem with that. There used to be a bomb shelter right here somewhere, and we would stand on top of it, sort of looking at the sky, and then all these Spitfires and whatever planes, you know, would be coming this way, and then Germans would be going that way. So there was like this constant, you know, shifting back and forth. And one of them, that we presume was an English plane, was shot down, and it was coming from this direction, and it was coming in flames down towards us. When all this was going on and my father saw, you know, the plane approaching, he looked around and saw that I was missing. And then he looks out and he sees me over there in the middle of the schoolyard, and he calls out, "Anton, Anton." And at the same time, he's looking up and he can see the plane coming so close, he could see the pilot in the plane.
You walked between the school and the house.
Yeah.
So, nobody should stay there because they were shooting on all sides. But he went like a madman walking there.
I had had these dreams of planes crashing through the years into my 20s. And it was always about every week or two, there would be a dream where a plane would come crashing out of the sky, and then the dream would end the moment it would impact on me. So that memory had lived on as a dream. When the war broke out, you know, the Germans took over our house. First the school, and then the school had to move into the church. And then the Germans wanted one of their soldiers, an officer, to live with us. That worked out for a bunch of months. And then next thing, they wanted our house, our entire house.
My father and mother had a big problem where to go, because the Germans said out, and that was it. He went to the gemeentehuis,
To the city hall.
city house, and he demanded a place for us to live. And we got it. My father and mother and friends, they took everything from our house, even the secret radio. My father put a cloth on top of it, and that if he was found out, that meant the bullet. Then you were dead.
Well, there's the house, still standing there. Every brick still in place. Nothing changed on the surface. My brother and I had first a pigeon coop behind these two windows at the top. But these birds had no chance to sort of see where they were, so we promptly lost them. But that's where I began to, you know, to learn to do that.
It was after maybe 6 months or so. I was playing with the other kids around there, and they said to me, "The house that you live in, it was from Jews."
And I had never heard of it until he told me this, like maybe half a year ago. And that he'd been told that Jews lived in our house, meaning, you know, it was like a bad place. And what obviously had happened is the reason that our house was available, because the Jews had been, you know, taken away and probably died. And here we were moving into their home, which we desperately needed, but at the same time, you know, if we had known about it, we would certainly have felt guilty and angry about it. But, you know, we didn't. The whole world is here. Something very relaxed in the faces of the people here, unlike New York. Does that look to you too? And that when you look at the faces seem very so soft and relaxed. But, Your place looks great. Your place looks wonderful.
Yeah, after they tore up everything, they left me a sloppy job, and then I just took care of it. Now I had to become green thumb.
Wow.
How your birds doing?
Well, you know, they're sitting on eggs, and we're going to have babies any day.
I'm throwing away the eggs now. I breed only for the winter.
You have too many birds?
No, I only breed for the winter.
Uh-huh.
Because I can't put them out because the hawks.
But how much more time do you think you still have here?
I don't know. I guess until good Lord calls me.
Oh, well, that's not bad, I think. Wow, you got beauties.
I got a lot of crossbreed, but I enjoy myself.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
like
all that matters.
I had one of the guys come here this morning, and
Oh,
he's
my,
like,
that's a beautiful one.
"Oh, you're not gonna get
That's
much money because you're crossbreeding them." And I looked at him. I was gonna say something. I just said, you know, there's always people criticizing you, whatever
I
you
know.
do. There's always. They're never gonna be the right.
Can I go inside
Win.
for a sec?
Yeah, go ahead.
You sure?
Yeah.
Hello, guys.
Just keep it asking.
Yeah, yeah, they're beautiful. Where's the baby? I don't see the baby. Is it inside?
Yeah, the baby's too young.
Yeah,
He's just starting.
beautiful. Well, you've made a wonderful world here.
Hey, I
It's
try.
very
you
special,
know.
right?
I'm retired now, so you know.
Yeah, you worked
'Cause
at
I
the
used-
Boys Club for...
I used to sit up on the roof to watch his birds fly,
I know, yeah.
and I used to watch them when the falcon used to hit you, man. Because falcon hunts in doubles.
I know,
One summer, boy, they were all over his birds.
I know.
Well, but I used to love watch those birds fly.
Yeah, hi.
They fly for hours.
Yeah, I'll be doing that again this spring.
Diseases,
Yeah.
the wars, push.
Hey, thank you very much.
All right, you take care.
I love
Good
you, I
seeing
love
you, man.
You're
Good
the best.
seeing
I
you.
love you. Yeah, so I will take. Hello.
Scene 6.
Home, family, street, work, memory.
I grew up on the Lower East Side in New York City. I was born in 1968. During the 1970s and the 1980s, this was a neighborhood that had been largely abandoned by the city. There'd been redlining for a long time. We always had a lot of animals. We had dogs, we had many cats, we had rabbits and a chicken. And that was always really fun. Although I have to say, like, a time came where I was sort of embarrassed about it, that people would come over here and be kind of like, what, do you have a chicken in your house in New York City?
You know, I came to New York City in I think it was 1964 or 5, yeah, and I met my wife, which is the mother of our 2 children, right? And I met her at the Museum of Modern Art the first day I was here. And we met and became companions and lovers and married, you know, within a year. So then we found a place which is right here on Avenue A, between 10th and 11th Streets.
No solamente habla, sino que canta y recita.
So this whole neighborhood is sort of a story of immigration. And the phrase for it has been called the portal to America. Here in this immediate neighborhood, it was largely Puerto Rican. And these were people that had come from Puerto Rico. And even though, you know, they're American citizens, they're still sort of treated second class. You know, there's a very big story there. That's very sad. But they were amazing, very socially active, outgoing, warm people. Whereas in Holland, where I grew up, you know, everything is indoors, behind curtains. You know, everything is very private. So for me, it was like an incredible kind of eye-opening education about how much larger the world actually is than I had thought. Rebecca, she was working for the Department of Welfare. She was very involved with and sort of educated me about the importance of social concern. Here was somebody who had actually lived these social concerns that I had, but more as an idea. And so when we met and she took me on one of these outings to visit a family on welfare, I suddenly saw for the first time what poverty was really like and people alone and with little or no help. So I was suddenly seeing this whole life sort of like an outsider, which I was. And I thought, you know, this is really amazing what I'm seeing here. You know, I'm an artist, I gotta make pictures about it, because I was sitting up here drawing at this table. You know, it's like I'm sitting in this ivory tower here, literally. and I'm not, you know, I'm making these drawings that was sort of inspired by European art that had nothing to do with what was happening here. And so I went on the streets with a little notebook, and I began to make sort of drawings, little doodle drawings of what I thought were the typical elements of the neighborhood, a storefront, a broken down car that I saw as being sort of what I picked out as the iconic images of that large landscape that was sort of disintegrating.
I never thought my parents were crazy for wanting to raise us in this neighborhood. I think that I understood why they wanted to do it. I don't think I always necessarily felt like that had been the best choice for my brother and myself.
Within the community of artists that I was part of, like Frank Stella and all of these people, their work was entirely conceptual. It wasn't like about a reality of life. And you couldn't even represent a reality of life. That was all considered taboo. It should have no narrative and all of this. So suddenly I stepped out and decided to do, you know, the very thing you're not supposed to do. So this is a story, you know, about where I live on Avenue A, and this is the house where I still live with my family. This is where we arrived in 1971, and this is the entrance, and we're up here right now. And I live on this floor with my family. And so I began in the 70s and 80s to make these cutouts about the neighborhood. So some of them were like just drawn on wood, and then I would cut them out. So it might be like this one, you know, an abandoned building that was falling down, because that was what a lot was happening in the neighborhood. And then also it might be like what this is. It's like there were these transsexual prostitutes living on 11th Street, and I would see them, you know, going over to 3rd Avenue where they would work at night. So I had cut them out of wood because I wanted to be like object, like theater. So more and more, it was sort of about the rawness of life, the incredible rawness of life that I tried to depict in this picture of these two dogs screwing. It was not so much about it, but more to sort of get in touch with, you know, seeing the rawness of life, you know, where you would see people, you know, shooting up. You know, and I was walking with the kids down the street. I mean, now my children talk about me like, what was I thinking, you know, to put them in that situation. But that was such a common thing, you kind of forget, you know, the true dimension of it when one lives with these things. Also, the police were incredibly hostile to the people who lived in the neighborhood, I always felt. So for me, it was all kind of strange, because I suddenly got to see like this whole neighborhood is sort of like a reenactment of the German invasion of Holland. I mean, it's sort of a big leap maybe for other people to follow, but it seemed all so familiar that suddenly, you know, people could come from outside and have such a dramatic impact on people's lives that they really had not wanted to happen.
My father was so focused on what he wanted. He had looked at the map and he thought Toronto is the place to be for schooling, for my younger children, and well, he chose Toronto. To me, Elaine also said, I don't want to go. Yeah. Remember? Yeah. The two of us, we were really of one mind and one decision. We didn't want to go. That was actually the final thing that took me over. We keep the family together for a start. We do it as a family.
I arrived here I was just 15 years old still, and in a world that was unlike anything I'd seen before. So we came here, we became as immigrants, and there were all these big crates that arrived from Holland. We emptied the crates, which were our belongings, and I broke them all up, and I asked my father if I could use them to build a pigeon coop. And I used those crates to build a pigeon coop that was in the backyard for about a year or two.
My name is Anton van Dalen. I was born in 1938. I'm born in Amsterdam, and I've been painting now for the last 7-8 years.
I was working at the CBC graphics department, and occasionally there'd be new people who would be joining the staff. One day I saw this young fellow, about 16 years old. I was able to see the kind of work that he was doing, and like the rest of us, were really quite impressed with him. It turned out that he never formally studied art, but what he was producing was really quite amazing. Anton had a youthful quality about his work. There was a kind of innocence to it which was so appealing, and everyone came into his office and always wanted to see what he was doing. And by the time I started writing my first book, Child of the Holocaust, Anton showed up, and he would come to our place.
And get a free meal.
Get a free meal.
And watch the Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah, watch the Ed Sullivan Show. So he would, after dinner, listen to my next chapter. And so this would continue. So that's how I was able to finish the book.
I keep thinking, like, why is it that certain people have played such a pivotal role in one's life? Because what I've come to conclude is that in the end, because I grew up in the war, and because Jewish life was so threatened in Holland greatly, amazing people lost. And I'd come from, a very isolated Calvinist community where there was like no discussion in the culture about anything that was difficult and dark, and certainly the war. So suddenly there was somebody in the department who reminded people constantly about it. You did, you brought it in your work and your conversations, and he didn't give it a rest. And for me, this is what I needed, for somebody to open that door to talk about it. My father quickly bought a house, and we were all supposed to contribute to it, and we could only keep 10% of the money we earned, and the rest had to go to the family to pay off the house. Except we all quickly left, so my parents were stuck with this big house and us gone.
Our father regretted bitterly at the end of his life. And he said to me at the end of his life, I have destroyed our family. Yeah, and I agreed. I didn't say so because, I had to comfort him.
And then I decided, I had to go to New York because I felt very strongly that the center of the world at that time was in New York City. And I always felt I wanted to be in the front row of life. And this neighborhood has totally, like 99% changed. What at one time was about, burning buildings, now we're living in a world, which is a lot about corporate culture.
I think it adds spice to life.
When you were born?
It depends.
I guess you were about
wife and kids.
4 months old here.
What are they gonna
And this is when we went and took you to show my parents for the first time. I was so upset because it was the first time my father and mother saw you. And I just fully expected they couldn't wait to hold you. But it took days before they did it, and then I had to stage a photograph so that I stuck you in my father's arm, and the picture should be right here. Here it is.
I was living in New York, already in this house, and I think we made a plan for him to visit us here, and that he was gonna call me, and then I would pick him up, and he would, I guess, come over here. So that when the phone started ringing, I didn't answer it, because I knew it was him. I didn't want to see him or do it. So, and that phone rang throughout the day a bunch of times, and I didn't pick it up. So then later I got a letter from him saying that he had called and that he'd had no response, and how, dejected and sad he felt that happened that way. That would have been the one time, he would have seen me as a family, as a person who had actually done a lot of things that I'm sure he hoped for, but he had not seen a future when actually there was a future. When I read that letter, and I still have it, I read it again not so long ago, that I had not answered the phone, and because obviously he knew that, and how sad that made him feel. I was really like, how could I have done that? I felt so stupid, bad. It seemed so callous and cold, and I was surprised, yes, that I had not been there for him. What would have been a wonderful moment for him. Rebecca died in 2002 from kidney cancer, and it was a very painful time. And early on came in treatment people that were the beginning of AIDS, before people knew what it was. So she had this enormous commitment that I think also inspired Miranda. These are kind of these people one meets in life that bring that social concern into action, not just thinking it's a nice thing to do, be sweet and kind to people.
But that's you now, or you're
Yeah,
blue one? Oh, now you're turned red.
I got caught. Gotta be careful because I'm only answering. That's just walking around. That's definitely not over there.
It's a tough crowd here.
So this last summer, my husband, Renee, and my two daughters, Cleo and Aster, who were 11 and 9, we just moved from the Texas-Mexican border in Brownsville up to New York City. We're now living here in the building downstairs. So it's a big change for us, but we feel very fortunate to be able to come back here to this house, which is where I grew up, and to have the opportunity to live close to family. My brother is not far away with his wife and their child, Diego, and also to be here with Anton and Judith. I think it's important, I think it's valuable. I think it's great for the kids to be able to spend more time with my father and get to know him better and to have a relationship with somebody who's of a different generation. I think that's really interesting and important.
And let's go to town. So with my grandchildren, you know, it's like one way where I can do something like that creates sort of a feeling of family and community that has an intimacy of it, where you're sharing a table and you're sitting next to each other and it's sort of like eating together. And there's some of these experiences and ways of being together that are very, you know, enclosing and like they're just the three of us in the whole world.
Okay, the birds are gonna...
I'm going to make the birds. Oh, there's a dog. You better get the leash or something.
Birds are like, no.
Oh, look, they're really gathering together now.
Yeah, you see, slowly they're flying together now.
After the Hunt is like my favorite so far. It's just, I think it's just dynamite. And he's been working on it for 8 or 9 years. But the first time I saw it, I just said, that's it. That there's just something there. And it just gets better and better. So he's, I think this year he's going to actually finish it.
See, this is the postcard that I fell in love with. So after the hunt, it's like what you do when the hunter brings the shot animal home, and it's like a scene of a meal. And the idea was to show that the cycle of life, you know, that there is life and there's death, and that these things, you know, form a circle. And I wanted it to look sort of like just a dead animal with the weight of an animal. I didn't want it to be all grim, because as I'm aging, as this drawing does, you know, it becomes more and more also kind of like a self-portrait, or a self-portrait of me in the future, right?
Anton, are you ready?
Yes.
This is Anton van Dalen. We've been coming to visit him for, I don't know, decades?
Decades.
Long time.
How have you seen your artwork transform as the neighborhood has transformed?
Well, I've had to try to keep up with it because it's changing so fast. And that's what this little theater that I'm going to show you guys is all about, is sort of a record of what it was like for me coming essentially, you know, as a white guy from Holland, grew up in a very Orthodox church, you know, that was Calvinist. I feel as whatever I do, which happens to be art, as a sort of a documentarian, I feel obliged that I want to make a recording of what's happening around me. And so I'm always looking like what is happening, what is changing. It was sort of a way of trying to understand, you know, the life that I inhabit.
You used to do what?
Murals out of stencils made and protest images, sprayed them on the street.
Mm-hmm. So stencil that you spray painted?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is you can make a stencil at home, and then you go out in the street. It's like a portable press, and you can just, with a can of paint, spray and then run because, you know, it's illegal. So for me, it's amazing that I can sort of show you what the neighborhood was like, because the people walking in there here today, right, it's nothing like what it was then.
It means a lot to him, especially at this time in his life when many of his friends feel totally, maybe they were famous artists at one time and they're just like totally out of the loop. There's just nothing that they connect with. And he's got people interested in his work. And he doesn't mind if it was done in '90 instead of at 2018. It's not always the newest, it's the substance, and they're getting it. And I think that's immensely important to him.
You know, I still work okay?
Yeah.
And here are my faithful assistants, Cleo and Aster. Thank you, guys. Anyway, this is what, oh, thank you. Thank you. That's beautiful. I mean, that's what I think I found is that I found that in the neighborhood, that you don't always want to be like an observer of life, that you have to step into life. And then when you step into life, you meet a lot of friends. And it's a very, and you feel like you don't feel guilty about just sniping at from the sidelines, right? That you're participating in the process of building a new community. That's really what you're trying to do then. I keep thinking what I was able to do in my lifetime, and I wonder about, you know, what is possible for them, because for many of us, you know, the world that they're facing is really different, and a lot of people are pessimistic about it, but the potential of their generation is amazing, because they can literally start a whole new idea of a civilization in a way that really hasn't happened. People ask me, like, how do they know to go home? I say, well, how do you know how to go home? You know, it's like the same thing, right? They're no different than us. Now that they're living here, it was sort of, for me, it's sort of like a dream, and then it's also, you kind of try not to put an obligation on it, because it was so much what my parents wanted, this intimacy as a larger family, and I didn't really give them an inch. And I kind of now feel sort of sadness around it, that it took me so long to get past these resentments of childhood. And it really didn't end until they were gone to do so. So the fact that they can't be here and kind of set aside, I'm sure they have their own issues, you know, things I could have done different or better for sure. But that they have the bigger mind than I have to set it aside and make it, and trust them with their children and all of these things, which I think for any parent is still a big thing. See you guys. Thank you. Goodbye, Diego. That was so amazing. That is amazing.